Hey there, guys. What's up? I had some things that I wanted to share, some things that were very heavy on my mind, and in fact, they were so heavy on my mind that I haven't even really been able to think about music other than the music that I wrote pertaining to these thoughts that I'm about to share with you. And really, this has to do with pleasure, the pursuit of pleasure, and why do we pursue pleasure, and why is it so significant in our lives? And if you don't think that it's significant in your life, ask yourself that question again, because I think it's a very common pursuit that all of us have, whether you're secular, whether you're Christian, or you're just downright rebellious and atheist. However you want to look at it, I think we all pursue pleasure in some way or form, because really, God gave us pleasure in a sense. And it's just, at what levels do you pursue that pleasure? Are you going to enjoy the pleasures of life that God gave us, or are you going to go out and smoke pot every day and get high? Or are you just going to be downright depressed and deny the fact that you're depressed and that you're right with God? What are you going to do here? And so really, I wanted to talk about this, and I want to talk about pleasure, our pursuit of pleasure. And I wanted to talk a little bit about both seculars and Christians. I've gone out and I've talked to many secular people. I do this for the fun of it, because these are the things that I'm thinking about. I'll ask a secular person, been doing this for a couple months. I'll ask them, what is your passion and your drive in life? And they'll tell me, well, money, sex, and a job. That's about it. And they'll think about, basically, they want to get married, they want to have a good job, they want to have plenty of money to do what they want to do with their wife and whatever they want to do with their money for pleasure. And okay, that's a very honest, good answer. I love it when people give me those honest answers. And then I'll go and talk to Christians, and I'll ask them, what do you find substance in life? And they'll throw out the popular Sunday school answer, Jesus, because Jesus is obviously their only pleasure and their contentment in life. And then I see them, just like me, they're pursuing happiness with things like music or coffee or I don't care what it is, anything at all, even cars, even women, girlfriends, or anything like that, and they're still pursuing pleasure. Do I think this is a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing, because it's a natural thing that God gave us. But I think that there's limitations to where it's good and where it's bad. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Why do I believe that? Because God gave us pleasure for a reason. And I was sitting in my room today, and I was just thinking, I was like, why do we have pleasure in certain things? And when I say pleasure, I don't mean like the bad things. I mean things that can be good can be pleasurable. Like eating chips can be pleasurable. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, like eating food. Food is the best example. And that's what I was thinking. I was eating some grapes, and I was like, why do these grapes taste good? And I didn't. He was like, why did God make food desirable and taste good? That's kind of hard for me, because I don't really have an appetite. But at a time, I did enjoy food. And it was like, why did God make food desirable? And after thinking about it, it's like, humans need food. And I think that's why God made food desirable. Why does a grape taste sweet? Because God knew that we needed it. And so He gave us a desire and a pleasure in eating and helping ourselves. I can't really explain why spinach tastes disgusting and why peas are absolutely gross. I can't explain that, but some people do like those. And even as a baby, at the very beginning stages of life, we liked food, and we needed it, and so it was like a good thing. It just worked for us. And then you can look at really crazy things like sex. Why is sex pleasurable? And that was a really controversial topic back in the day. It's becoming more acceptable to actually talk about it, and we can actually use the word sex without people getting all crazy and weird and stuff, and like, oh, that's not a biblical word. But no, God did put pleasure in sex. Why? So that we would mate and we would multiply the earth. He told us to multiply the earth. So there's a reason that sex is pleasurable. But that's not for me to say. I've never been married. I don't understand that. I just don't get it. That's just the way I look at things. But you can look at this in any different way. Look at socializing. Socializing is it's a social need, and so it's something you fulfill, and that's why you hang out with people. But again, I'm kind of not really want to talk about because I don't really hang out with people. I kind of hang out by myself. And that's a lot of the reasons why I kind of get, depressed occasionally. It's because I'm not out with people and I'm not fulfilling these social needs. So the point I'm trying to make is God did make certain things pleasurable. But does that make them bad? Does that make pleasure bad? Does that make pursuing pleasure bad? And I am going to say that perhaps it is. I don't know that, but maybe it is. And I went and looked and did research in the Bible to see, where God suggested that being happy was His calling in our life. Because, growing up in Sunday school, growing up as a Christian, you hear that even in Christian movies, you see that Christians are supposed to be happy. At the very end of the Christian movie, everybody's happy, and they're just chill, and they have a big smile on their face. It's like, this is the norm of Christians, right? This is what God wanted. But if you look in the Bible, there is nowhere in the Bible that says God is going to promise happiness. He promises joy, but that's not happiness. They're two different things, because happiness pertains to the flesh, while joy pertains to faith, basically. Basically, faith in heaven, faith and joy in Him currently on earth. And it wasn't about the flesh. And that's why I think a lot of people are nuts when they're talking, like they'll go out and they'll drink or they'll smoke pot, and they'll say, oh, smoking pot brings me closer to Jesus. Well, that's when you know that your relationship with Christ is basically based on your flesh and not on your spirit. And I think that's where a lot of people are in the flaws of Christianity, is they base their relationship with Christ on their feelings, and feelings pertain to the flesh, not with the spirit. And as I've mentioned over and over again in Galatians 5:17, the spirit desires what's contrary to the flesh, and the flesh desires what's contrary to the spirit. I don't need to get into that again. But again, we have pleasure. We have pleasure in the flesh. So what does this mean? Is pleasure okay? Or should we not even be thinking about it? Well, think about this, and this is what totally blew my mind the other day. I was writing on my whiteboard over there, and I was writing down there's 4 main things I thought about, the 4 bad boy topics that that Christians say, like, bring us farther from Christ, or are Satan's tools. Okay, and the ones I found were money, sex, drugs, and even religion. Those are the works and the things that we pursue that the devil uses to lead us from Christ. And I think this is very true. But we put bad names on all of those things. Why do we pursue money? Well, because it will make us happy, right? Okay, so happiness is the drive. Why do we pursue sex outside of marriage? Well, because we assume that it will make us happy, right? Okay, so why do we pursue drugs if we're not happy? Well, because we think it'll make us happy, And why do we pursue religion when none of those other things happen? Well, we think that Jesus is going to make us happy. And so maybe it isn't those 4 things. Maybe it's happiness. Maybe that's our idol. Maybe that's the thing that Satan uses to lead us from Christ. It's like that passion and that drive to be happy. So maybe Christianity isn't about being happy. Maybe it's about what Jesus said it was about, and it was about loving Him with all our heart and loving our neighbor as ourselves. That doesn't have to do with us. It doesn't have to do with our feelings. It has to do with loving other people and loving Him. It's not about being happy and content. It's just not. And again, which is crazy why people think that they can, drink a cup of tea and go do yoga and then smoke pot and they feel like they're in the spiritual realm. That's a feeling. Same thing with music. Music is a feeling. You'll say, oh, I jumped out of this church because I just couldn't get into the music because the worship music just wasn't my style. Okay, well, you're basing your worship and your relationship with Christ on a feeling. I'm not saying music's wrong. I'm not even saying that drugs are wrong. I'm saying basing your relationship with Christ on a feeling is wrong. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And I also wanted to point out that I think that we use some of the innocent and pleasurable things in life, like like food or sex or anything like that, the things that God made pleasurable, we abuse them. And, the Bible talks about back in the day when people invented ways of doing evil. Basically, they're using innocent pleasures to do wrong things. And like food, it's a good desire to like food. But if you don't eat right, and you only eat the really, really good tasting stuff, like the sugars and the fats, you're going to kill yourself, and you're going to get fat, okay? And then that's where gluttony comes in. And so it's like, okay, so you're taking a good desire and a good substance that feeds you, and you are killing yourself. And you're basically, sinning with it. I don't know. I'm not even going to say that's a sin, but that's kind of a controversial topic, especially here in America, because everybody's fat, okay? So I'm not even going to go into that, but let's look at sex, for example. There are millions of different ways to sin with sex, and only one way to do it right. Okay, so does that mean that sex is wrong? No, it's like the same argument, is it wrong to have the internet? Well, there's more ways to use the internet wrong than there is to use it right. Okay, maybe that's not true, but there's a lot of ways to use the internet wrong. Same with television. Okay, there's probably more things on television that you shouldn't be watching than things that are okay to watch. It's kind of a controversial thing. Where are you taking pleasure? What's the healthy pleasure? What are you doing with alcohol? Are you using it in the way that God meant for us to use it? Or are you using it in a way to get drunk and to get a mild high or whatever? I don't think you can technically get high with alcohol, but it will give you a very high feeling. Are you using it to get drunk? Basically. But there's many different ways to use these substances that provide pleasure, but they're more of a tool that God put on this earth for different reasons. And I'm not going to get into the whole alcohol thing because I think a lot of people will disagree, even though I'll use scripture to back me up, because it's a really controversial topic. So the pursuit of pleasure. Pleasure is not bad. God uses pleasure to get the job done. To get the job done that He created us for. He made food pleasurable because we needed to eat. He made sex pleasurable because we needed to multiply, and because He wanted us to have a very close and intimate relationship with another human being the rest of our lives. There's many other things that I'm sure I've never thought about, but hey, I'm a guy, okay? What am I going to think about food and sex, okay? That sounds really bad. But those are the things I thought about. So maybe you guys can think of some other things. I'm going to go ahead and end the video because I've already been talking for about 11 minutes. Go ahead and make some posts down below and let me know your opinion. I don't mind any weird, philosophical conversation. I like philosophical conversations. Go ahead and say something, and then I can think about something for the rest of the week. Alrighty, thanks for listening, guys. I'll talk to you later.